Before we get into this episode of the podcast, I just want to let you know that at the end of this episode, before going into the end credits, there's about a 20-minute conversation between Sai and I on the topic of how to get started in podcasting, how to track the analytics of it, and what kind of gear is used, particularly in our situation, that you can use to kind of get started your own podcast. So if you're interested in listening to that, listen through to the end of the podcast. I'll put it in just before the end credits. Thanks. Left before, so
the camera goes off.
Yeah.
Do you want me to look at you, the camera?
We usually just talk to each other.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, because I think you're well, we have Siam Grobler from the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce on today.
Hi, RJ.
Thank you for being on. You know, it's been
welcome.
Half an hour and we're just getting the
we're just getting started.
Yeah. So
very cool.
Anyway, yeah, we usually just forget about the microphone.
Okay.
That's kind of like, I think, one of the skills that we have in making people comfortable. One of the questions that I was going to save for later, but do you like it? Do you identify as like an extrovert or introvert? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm an extrovert. I remember I had to write a paper. So I'm doing my MBA, and so I had to write a paper.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, a leadership paper. And so part of this leadership course was, introspective. You have to like really dig down about who you are, like who you be. Yeah. And I think I started off my paper by saying my animal, if I were to choose an animal, would be a squirrel. And my wife's like, that is not a good way to start a paper at all. And I'm like, no, but that's me. Like, I'm there, I'm running around, and then I'm over here and I'm running around and I'm here, and I'm not really ashamed of being busy and out there. So no, I'm totally an introvert for sure. Extrovert. Yes. Totally an extrovert. Yes, for sure, without a doubt.
I figured, and it's interesting. I don't know if we've kind of started, diving into this a little bit, tying it in, just because like Telsey and I both are highly like identified as introverts.
Okay,
and like a lot of our audience, a lot of people that kind of come to float, it's all part of the atmosphere here for a lot of people.
It's the introvertedness.
Okay. I mean, the further you go down the progress of self-mastery and stuff, there's a balance, right? Like you learn, like we've talked about this, you learn how to get over that shyness, which is different from introversion. Yes. To be able to talk to the camera or talk to the microphone.
Yep.
But a lot of our guests sometimes aren't totally used to it. So I like them to forget that there's a camera going or a microphone going as much as possible.
It's interesting that you say the introvertedness, sort of like those people kind of tend to flow spa or floating.
Yep.
And sort of this flow state, because that's meditation, right? Like if you kind of are working on yourself, you're kind of thinking internally, and so sort of that sort of perspective, definitely I can see that it lends towards this. Whereas I think sometimes people that are extroverts, typically people just kind of think that they're like shallow. They're out there performing, they're out on the stage, and it's not necessarily true, but that impression is totally there, right? Of like, oh, you're not the deep thinker, you're not like sitting down, like you're like your classic philosopher pose right now, like
the actual thinker
pose. Instead of like you're out like waving your arms around, so like totally that vibe. And not to make you change your pose there at all. But
that's okay, I'll stay in that pose.
It's a great pose. But that's I think that happens a lot, like you just kind of like, okay, that guy's up on stage, he's very forward facing, like he doesn't sort of take back time to like review what happened in the day, or just before we came in, you talked about like having sort of those moments of of quiet moments. What did you
like stillness?
Stillness. Yeah, like just to kind of think about. And I mean, I do that all the time. Like
awesome.
I do that all the time. People think that I'm definitely in my position at the chamber. I'm forward. I'm out there. It's my role.
Yeah.
People tend to think that that's just, that's what I do, and totally that is an aspect of it. But I'm not really. It's funny. I don't think of myself as being the performer type or like out in the open. I'm actually. I think of myself as much more introverted than what I act, because I'm in my head constantly. I talk to myself nonstop.
Yeah.
Right? Like over and over. I discuss arguments in my head over and over and over. And then like at the end of the day, I lay down and I'm like, okay, what happened today? What happened tomorrow? What do I need to improve upon? And sort of trying to step back a little bit and trying to understand, how come I did that? How come I'm okay doing that? And for me, I am very extroverted. I'm not shy of making a mistake. Like that's the way that I think about it. I'm not attention seeking. I'm just really not afraid of messing up too much.
Cool.
Like, that's kind of my outlook on that.
Yeah.
The work that I do, no one's gonna die. Like no one. Like no one's gonna, like, the worst thing you could possibly do is kill someone, right? Like really, like that is like up there. Like like killing people is way up there. And in my work, I can't do that. Like I physically, unless I I'm an erratic driver.
Yeah.
Right? Like I honestly, my day to day, I cannot kill someone. And so that gives me a ton of freedom to go and explore.
That's interesting.
And challenge, and not challenge, I'll rephrase that. It gives me the opportunity to go out and do stuff. And then if it fails.
So what? It's a new lesson to learn from.
Yeah, and no one's dead. So like you go again. Like I think about this a lot because my dad's a pediatrician.
Yep. My
My mom's a pharmacist, and she should have been a doctor, but that's a different story. And my wife is a dentist. And so medical background, grew up in that household. Like all three of those professions, you've got no wiggle room for trying stuff out of the box.
Sure.
Like you can try to talk to patients differently, but there's a protocol when it comes to any of these things.
Yeah.
And if you don't follow it, there are serious consequences to your reputation. You can lose your license, and you can seriously hurt someone.
Yeah.
So those professions are they're trained to be that way. And so you cannot make a mistake there. And that's right. The same thing with an airplane pilot. You don't want him to try stuff. Ever. Right? Like you don't want him to be like, well, this button I don't need to press today. Like no, like you follow the steps. And in my career, I don't have that. Like I just don't have that. And so it gives me the opportunity to be like, okay, well, what can I do to advance my the organization that I work for, myself, my career, all of that. And like if that means taking a chance, then I go for it. And a lot of times I just end up being in a role of being forward facing. I just end up being sort of, okay, send him out, get him to talk to people. And even though I don't, like I said before, I don't like shy towards that. It just sort of happens. So
interesting.
That's kind of, that was a long-winded explanation of, are you an introvert? Extrovert. It's outside.
Okay. No worries.
Good question to start with.
It is, because, it led in a couple of different directions. You were going to...
I was going to, so what do you see yourself as? More introverted?
Oh, yeah.
See, I don't find that from you, because you're very like when we first met, like this is only our second conversation, right? Like I was here a couple of weeks ago, and it was just this, like you're very personable and you're very interested and you listen really well. And so like, and you knew my name, which was the crazy part. Like I stopped in here months before. You're like, hey, Si. I'm like, holy crap. Like, how did you remember my name? Or like I had to look, I was in the parking lot looking up your name before coming in. Like I knew your last name and that was it. So like I wouldn't guess that you were introverted necessarily.
That's like I'd say that's a huge compliment, because if you knew me not even a decade ago, like 4 years ago, it would be totally a different answer. It's been that's like my life thesis. It's sort of the mission with the flow. Like flow is all about finding meaning, but like to me it's like growth and progress is like what drives me. And so that's really awesome to hear, because that's like just what I've been working on.
Cool.
Like it's been huge life changes kind of led me to want to start my own thing, and part of that was really developing this confidence that was like built from 10 years of reading books, right?
Gotcha.
Like a lot
so you spent time taking it all in.
I spent way too much time taking it, like in my opinion, way too much time taking it all in.
Okay.
People say that timing, it's like it happens when it happens for a reason kind of thing, which I definitely like believe in too. Not in like a super like spiritual side of it, but from just, I don't know, just life experience kind of getting to that point. But it's those are just like central to like what I've developed as my core values. Like the name thing is just actually,
name thing being what? Sorry.
Like remembering people's names.
Oh, okay.
Is just it's the central, like Dale Carnegie, right? How to win friends and influence people.
Cool.
And that was something that Josh Chessman, who you were just saying you were watching.
I was watching his what a cool dude.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, I'd known it before, but I'd worked in areas where it was easy to remember everybody's name because you saw everybody every day.
Gotcha.
And then the first time that I was subjected to this different realm of like needing to learn a whole bunch of people's names was working for him at the gym, right? And it was a new person like every day, and you're trying to remember names, and everybody like that comes. And for me, like running a business, it's just and seeing people come back, like a person's name is music to their ears,
totally,
as Dale Carnegie says. And so I do absolutely everything I can to remember people's names. Excellent. And it's practice. It's like it's a muscle like anything else. If you work on it.
Sorry, I was going to interrupt you.
No,
like,
okay.
So how do you practice that? Do you do was it Back to the Future thing with Brendan Fraser, where he's like, hi RJ, how are you doing, RJ? What do you do here, RJ?
I definitely think one of the most valuable tips is using the name as many times in the first meeting.
Okay.
And then, I mean, it happens from time to time because we've got so many customers here that I do mess up a name. If I've messed up your name, I'm never going to forget it again.
Gotcha.
So not that I say intentionally mess up somebody's name, but I do also like the mnemonic idea, right? So if you can kind of associate somebody in some way, like if they remind you of a famous person who's,
gotcha.
They're
gotcha.
Whatever
Okay.
it is.
Just a little trick thing.
Whatever you can do, yeah. Like I know there's deeper mnemonic things and memory techniques where you kind of like, I could envision I don't know, somebody like tap dancing on your head or whatever, or like I know there's a lot that goes into kind of like finding out like a facial feature that really like links it to memory. And I don't know if I do any of that subconsciously. It's just like I said, it's using the name as much as possible is definitely good, but then kind of the conversation, if you can associate something personally to them, you're gonna have a much better way like time remembering them too. If you've had some sort of conversation, it's like, and it takes some time. Like I have so many customers, and sometimes it's like I know their story is X, like they have like a daughter that's in gymnastics or something, but I can't remember their name. And that's where something that like I guess kind of goes into more of my like introverted nature is that instead of like just like jumping forward with it, I let my like subconscious, or maybe this is like the mindfulness training or whatever. Mm-hmm. I know that like my subconscious will come to the answer
if I
give it a little bit of time.
Interesting.
And so by the end of the conversation, it'll be like, nice to see you again, Si. Like I got it again. It's just like if you ruminate on that too much, you're gonna like get stuck in your own way. And like I don't know, I find that with a lot of things, not just names, but like a lot of things.
Interesting.
And to be honest, like not the only way, like were very impressionable from the start. But I mean, I've been watching the chamber videos, so I
Oh,
know
gotcha.
who you are.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like,
and I say,
I
hi,
know
I'm
when
Si.
you go to the when you go to the mailboxes and deliver all the chamber letters. It's like
Yeah.
I've been, because I've been wanting to join the chamber for quite a while. It's just been kind of
Gotcha.
timing it with cash flow. Like, it's just like I knew who you were and I knew who Tiff was. And
Yeah, I mean that's the great part about social media is that you could, like, you know, now a nonprofit like ourselves we have the opportunity to give our organization a brand, or sorry, not a brand, a personality, which has always had.
yeah,
The chamber's like the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce has been around for 130 years, so it's
Yeah.
always it always has had a personality, and it's thing, and it's permanent. But with social media, for the first time, like, we could, like, show you exactly what that personality is.
Yeah.
And Tiffany and I, it's a great story how it sort of ended up to, you know, where we are now with our social media profile with the chamber.
Yeah.
From where we were before, because we've always had lots of members, lots of content, lots of stories that we were telling. But when Tiffany and I started, there was there was a dedicated effort on mainly Tiffany's part, because she came from an industry where they really utilize social media a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas the chamber network, the chamber community, a little bit slow on that front as an industry.
Yeah.
And so she came in with this knowledge of, like, yep, this is what we need to do. And her attitude was, like, we need to, like, show people that we're an awesome organization, because we are. And so with her help, sort of like lining everything up of, like, yeah, okay, film what we do. That's it. Like, there's nothing acted here. It's like, we mail out letters, film that. We have staff meetings talking about this, film it. Talk about how we're setting up excellence awards. Like, you know, take photos, just let people in, and all of a sudden we've got this opportunity just to show people our personality.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's Tiffany. That was Tiffany. Sort of. Before the chamber, I came from. I worked for General Electric in the water division.
Yep.
They're no longer in the water division. They got out of that.
Okay.
My joke is, once I told them that I was leaving, they sold the water division. It was like, you know, this $5 billion organization was nothing without me, but that's not true in the slightest. And so in that realm, you know, I had no opportunity to impact the personality, the branding of this giant multinational corporation.
Sure.
Because that's, you know, there's someone else doing that. They're making crap, you know, they're huge. You know, at that stage we had 3,000 employees across Canada, and I was one of them.
Yeah.
You know, and I had no say in that. And so you go to the chamber, there's 7 people, there's now 8 people. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, what do you want? You know, you are now in charge of what the personality is. Like, you can showcase that.
Yeah.
It's like, sweet, okay, yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for showing people what we do, how we do it, what we're trying to achieve, our struggles and stuff. And now we ran out of hard space on our computer on our servers.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago,
Like,
it was like,
I just got a new, like, these videos are all about 40 gigabytes for these podcasts.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, that's a lot.
It is.
So, like, you know, wow, yeah. So, like, a normal computer, I think my first laptop had 200 gigs. So that's, you know, that's 5 podcasts. That's a month.
Only until this past month when I upgraded my computer, I had a 256 gig hard drive. Like, I was not editing on my computer anymore because it ran out of space a long time ago.
Yeah.
I had to edit off of an external hard drive.
Crazy.
And it was so slow.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
And
so, like, where's the bank of servers coming in just to keep all of this
right now, like, you know, eventually there's some pretty sophisticated, like, storage backup stuff too these days, but I've just got with Black Friday I just got like a 3 terabyte hard drive to store at least this year's worth of stuff on.
You worry about next year.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
any cloud stuff that you use or no?
It's I've got, you know, a bunch of cloud storage. You know, Adobe gives you 100 gigabytes.
Gotcha.
When you're subscribed, like the Google Drive, you know, for our email. iCloud, I've got 50. Like, but I don't store stuff there just because that's for quick access files. I don't really. it's too hard to maintain like all those different, like, where is everything? You
Gotcha.
know?
Yeah, if you got 10 here and 50 here and 100 here, yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
I'm getting smarter on that side of like the digital file systems.
Cool.
Because if you kind of keep it everywhere, it doesn't work. Whereas if you put it on an external hard drive, you even write like I do a lot of like paper journaling and stuff. Very analog with a lot of that stuff. And
isn't that nice to write stuff out?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you like on board with that?
Oh man, like I brought my notebook and you should have seen me studying last night for this podcast. Like I've got notes. I've got. By the way, we're failing that part because none of what I studied or we're talking about at all.
We might get there depending on how much time you have, but that's it's okay because
it works so well. Like it works so well. Just hand to paper. Just. Like it just, I don't know what it is. That thing of just you write it down, it sticks better.
It does.
You remember writing it. Yep. It's weird.
There's I think we've covered it a couple of times before, but there's an actual like memory and psychological component to it.
Cool.
Because the thoughts in your head are mostly like right brain creative things.
Okay.
And when you write it down, the actual seeing it and writing it also ties into the left hemisphere, which is more.
So you're sending connections.
Yeah, you're sending connections through the corpus callosum to actually tie the information together, which makes it stick more. It primes your brain to like pick up on the opportunities more. Mm-hmm. Subconscious gets to work on it. That's why a lot of people recommend, whether it's first thing in the morning or last thing before you go to bed, you write down what you need to work on first thing in the morning. While you sleep, your subconscious is working on it, and then boom, you're ready to go in the morning.
Interesting.
So
my wife does journaling. I'm not a journaler. Yeah. But I definitely.
You're like a task list kind of person.
Task list. Yeah. I write everything down. Yeah. My sales meetings. I just write. I just devour stuff. Yeah, it's funny. So I also teach a course, and none of my students write. Well, very few of my students take handwritten notes, or even like because I've got a Surface computer, so I write. Yeah. So during this MBA, I've been like, I'm writing like crazy, and it's awesome. Yeah. Because like I'm not using paper. Yeah. And like I can choose different colors, and I don't know with the light thing if that's a bad thing or not, but
I'm like my opinion is if you're still writing it, it's still working for the most part.
That's kind of what I feel like too.
I find like having a smart. So last year I discovered like the whole bullet journal method.
Okay, what's that? Sorry.
So it's like just like a very like rapid sort of style of. I'll show you afterwards what it looks like.
Okay.
But, it's on dot grid paper, so it's very free form to do whatever you want with it, and it's a really like nice system that like I'll show you after. It's very cool, but it's very useful for retrieving information in like an analog form. And the thing that drew me to it in the first place is the creator of this bullet journal method described it as a mindfulness technique disguised as a productivity tool.
Okay.
And when I heard that, I was like, I don't know what that means, but I am down for it.
You're like, sign me up.
Yeah. And
I'll give you all my money.
Well, I bought his book because it was when he was kind of promoting the book that I first heard of it. People like have been into like the whole bullet journaling for a long time, but
the newest thing, not a newest thing, a thing that I saw a couple of years ago this year when it comes to writing down notes, you can buy a book with a special pen.
Yeah, no, I have one of those.
You take a photo.
The rocket book.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. I haven't tried it.
I used it for a while. I just I don't know. Like for a long time I was so far on the digital side of it. And I get that, but like I've just realized when it comes to wanting to reflect on things, or even like I am obsessed with actual books, and like as much as I have like a huge library of Kindle books, and there's an app called Scribed, which is like a library digital like subscription. It's like $8 a month, and you can basically get whatever book you want.
Cool, but
there is a big difference. Like I just can't get over the paper, like the actual
feel,
like the actual paper book.
For my MBA, taking courses. downloading PowerPoints,
Yeah.
saving it on like OneDrive on the Surface,
Yeah.
and then like I can make notes.
Yeah.
Great, awesome. And then like I would, when I started at the chamber, I would take that into sales meetings.
Yeah.
And people were so like distracted by the fact that I was taking notes on a computer with a pen.
Oh yeah.
That it just threw them like they were just like hold on, what are you doing? And then like realized that, you know, I'm a millennial, I'm fairly young, coming in with this thing. I was like, you know what, this vibe isn't right. So back to paper. It works great. Like I've got no issue with it. Like the part that I like so much about the digital one is that I don't run out of space.
Yep.
Like, and it's there, and
I
it's
agree.
saved to the cloud. Like I'm not losing anything.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sometimes it depends on what I'm doing. Like I've evolved to like a digital system for the podcast because like the questions that I write down that I want to ask, which we sometimes get to or not.
Yeah.
I've started to do, like, originally it was all on paper, and then I'd mark the show notes on one page, and I'd have the questions I was going to ask on the other page. But then I found like a nicer system digitally that I kind of switched to that kind of just saves a few steps and makes it easier for when I'm copy and pasting all the show notes to the different, whether it's YouTube and all that. So I like the meshing of the two different styles depending on what it is. And you know, like a digital calendar is
the best.
is really awesome.
The best.
I still I kind of do it as like a redundancy though. Like I will put it on my Apple calendar, but I actually still write it down on an actual planner too. Yeah.
I've gotten to the point now, and I don't know if I'm proud about it or not, but like if it's not in my digital calendar, it didn't happen. Like I'll backtrack meetings, I'll backtrack like people, like everything. Like even if something happens, I'll put it in.
That's great.
And I'll you know, if my wife says we're going out for supper, it's in there. Like everything is in there. And if it's not there,
it doesn't get done.
Or it didn't happen. Like one or the other, and like and it's weird because if I'm like thinking back, reflecting on the day or the week, it's like this crutch that I'm leaning on. Of like, okay, what actually happened today? Yeah. What does my calendar say?
Yeah.
What do my notes say? How do I work back from that?
Yeah. No, it's okay. That's my mom. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She's coming in to get set up for the morning.
Cool.
It's all good. No, I don't think it's a crutch though. That's like, the more that I study, you know, people that are excelling in their fields, that is one of the keys.
Oh yeah?
That's something that,
like the organizing part or the digitizing part? Which exact part? Sorry.
I'd say more the organizing part.
Okay.
Yeah, having it like written down as something, even if it's for the fact that you can look back, you can see if you were productive or not.
Interesting.
You know, you can see how you use your time. Yeah. When it comes to say you think you've run out of time in your week, you're like, I can't fit anything else in my schedule. If you actually, even so, it's this concept that I'm kind of obsessed with right now too, because of this behavioral psychologist called Nir Eyal.
Okay.
He wrote this book recently called Indistractable. Okay. And one of the key things that he suggests people do is actually like record everything you do. It's also something that's pretty popular with like bullet journaling and like having paper journals that time boxing. Yeah. Or people call it batching, chunking. Yep. I like the idea of time boxing, which the reason I'm like, you know, rambling on about it, I actually just like finished up writing a new course that I'm going to be launching. Like a digital program
through FlowSpa or a little side thing.
Sort of, kind of. You know,
cool.
Like my life is FlowSpa, so it's like it'll definitely be something that a lot of the audience uses. But it's basically going to be like kind of the success tips for achieving your own dream goals.
Cool.
Because you know this is a dream goal that, and like that's kind of the phrasing that I've used for. Actually longer than I can even recall is like this idea of like the dream goal, and it's just something that's like, you know, a huge goal you don't really know if you can achieve. It doesn't really matter if you actually achieve it, but the process to get there, the working towards it leads to this growth that like I'm so obsessed with. So
part of this, and so is the course going to be called Dream Goals?
So no,
or you're not there yet.
Well, I guess it's going to be called 2020 Vision.
Okay.
Because we're approaching 2020.
Like it.
And yes, this is supposed to be the way that, it's going to be it's a pretty like, basic starting point. It's the first steps on like a really long journey, cool. Like Lao Tzu says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Mm-hmm. These are not just the single step, but the first few steps towards your, we're entering a new decade, 2020. It's been 20 years since we thought the world was ending with the year 2000. And, some people are kind of like, there's definitely a lot of people that are kind of lost, floating around aimlessly without like a vision. And mm-hmm. It's something that the more that I've directed my life, I realize that there's simple steps, but they're not easy. Gotcha. But I really want to, like, it's just something that clicked into my mind that I've got people coming to me now, and I'm so happy to give them advice or like cool. kind of give them, what maybe the next step might be for them, mm-hmm. that I figured like I'd just start packaging it together. Cool. And so I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, I sat down at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, okay. and I wrote till 1 p.m. Whoa. And then Monday I was supposed to be doing other work, but I wrote for like half the day. So I've got like 11,000 words. Whoa. And then there's going to be a video for each section. Very so cool. I want people to work on it over the course of like a week, probably. There's I think there's 6 sections. There's a bonus section. So there's technically a week's worth of material that I want cool. people to do day by day, and workbook material to go with it. Gotcha. So that you can actually like, because the action's the important part. Yes. You can read like I did for 10 years. Yeah, you can read totally. Everything you want.
Then you have to do it.
But you actually have to do it.
So, and this boxing thing is part of, is it like the first lesson, second lesson? Is it early on?
So the first one is on how to like set your dream goals. Okay. So goal setting is section 1, after the introduction. And then after that is,
do you have a foreword where you thank your mom and your dog, or?
So I've, not yet. Like I've written a book on strongman.
Oh, cool.
Like I've got like a 300-page strongman training guide.
Wow.
And that one has like my sort of forward. That was something that I worked on sort of
crazy
while like I was working at the gym, while this was kind of, that was like the transition phase of my life. And like, okay, I had this idea to write like a strongman training book for a couple of years, and I never really got around to do it. And then like I moved back to Peterborough. I had like a big, sort of like transition in my life. Yeah. Like left the sort of corporate world at Queen's University. And, okay. And that was when I sat down for like a couple of months and wrote out this strongman book that I'd spent, at that point, like what, 7 years of strongman training, like was condensed into like my own view of it as a natural athlete. Crazy. And so Seasons of Strongman is like a year-round training guide.
Seasons of Strongman, good name.
But like, yeah, but because I wanted it to have quite a narrative structure to it. So it actually is based off of Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, like his monomyth. So the idea that like all of these stories that we're really drawn to, whether it's Star Wars, the Lord of the Rings, mm-hmm. they all follow this kind of monomyth structure, with the hero, yep. there's a call to adventure, yep. There's the entering into like descending into hell or the darkness, there's like the sage. All this stuff is kind of the way like I envision like the cycle of strongman going. Okay. And so Seasons of Strongman is really cool. like tied into that.
No wonder you say you're introverted. Like you wrote like 11,000 words and like
yeah.
I have to start writing my thesis in January. I should get you to do it.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, talking about that, you've got a master's degree in biology?
Yeah, I got a master's degree in specifically environmental physiology is the big umbrella. Yeah. Okay, so biology is the big umbrella. Yeah. Environmental physiology. And then a tiny sliver, what I actually studied, before what I actually studied is rainbow trout physiology and behavior. Okay. And specifically, I did my thesis then was on ammonia, how ammonia influenced rainbow trout hierarchies. So super specific because that's the way science goes. Yeah. I watched a lot of fish swim around because that's what I signed up for. it was so that's my that's one part of my academic.
And now you're working on your MBA.
Now I'm working on my MBA.
And do you still teach at Trent, or was that
the MBA allowed me, I took a couple of courses in the MBA that allowed me to teach social enterprise and social innovation at Trent. So just one course. I'm a course instructor.
Gotcha.
I don't have a desk there. Well, I technically do have a desk, but I don't have a desk. Like I just go in, I teach.
Yeah.
I come back. I'm in the middle of grading finals right now.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
That's tons of fun.
Yeah. Now, so I think I get the picture of like what led you to this with a very like academically, like centered family household.
Yep.
So, but that's a lot of schooling.
Tons of schooling.
So. Is that what influenced you? Like this sort of, you've got, how did you go into this kind of like different style of it though? Because you've got like, the family structure is all, like doctors and pharmacists and you kind of like, we're headed that way. It looks like biology, like that's sort of pre-med route. But then what led you? Is that sort of just the natural thing? You kind of had to go to university. Did you feel like, or was it, how did that all work for you?
Yeah. So, in our household, university was an expectation, but it wasn't for the job. You didn't do university to get a job.
Yeah.
You did university to get an education and life experience. And
cool.
So, as a kid, it was like, yeah, you're going to university. And so like that sort of expectation was there from the beginning, and you could choose, obviously what you wanted. And there was never a sort of idea of like, yeah, well, this is going to get you a good job. Like that expectation never existed. It was like, no, you're just going to go to university. It's a great experience. You're going to learn lots. Like this is sort of like forming a complete human sort of like vibe.
Yeah.
In my family's interpretation of that. And then I was good at biology, really good at biology in high school. Just really liked it. Looking back at it, I really liked what you would call facts, so hard evidence, like data, like this idea of objective truth. Like I just really enjoyed that aspect, and so science that's sort of like the basis of scientific reasoning, sort of, and so did that undergrad, did that, and then after undergrad, I was never smart enough for pre-med. Like medical doctor was never my, like I was just not intelligent enough for that. And that's, whatever. Like that was.
I went through that same sort of experience myself. So yeah.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Like looking back on it, I feel like it was a little bit of just not mature or ready enough.
Yeah.
Not ready enough.
I get that.
I feel like I could do it now if I really wanted to.
Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
But I don't think, like, I veered from that path a long time ago, and I don't really feel the call to.
Yeah.
It wasn't my purpose, I think.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. So then finish undergrad, and then like undergrad, the driving factor, you've got all these different things going on, but like the driving factor for me once I finished undergrad was like not to go to work. Like I finished undergrad and I was like, I am not ready for work.
Okay.
Like that was the overarching theme that I had.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can't go to work. Like I'm just not ready to, like 9 to 5. I'm not ready for that. I'm just not ready. I'm not ready for that. There's also this lingering thing of like, I haven't quite done enough in science or biology. I need to know a little bit more. Like that part was also there, but the driving factor was like, I can't work right now.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you're out of undergrad and you don't want to work, right? Like you go back to school, right? Like what else are you going to do? So super fortunate to get into the lab that I got into. That's a great story for another time.
Yeah.
Got in there, and then like as soon as I got in there and saw what academia was like, I realized that I don't want to do academia. So like this track towards PhD and teaching, like I love teaching, don't get me wrong, but like that level of like detail, like I'm not that detailed oriented.
Sure.
I'm just not. So like that specific was not it. So then it was like, okay, well, you like biology because you like facts and data, but you don't like it that much that you want to like devote your life to how exactly does the metabolism of a trout differ in this environment? Like, I'm not that interested in it. I'm sure I'm interested, but not that interested. And then that turned into when I was in take a couple steps back, always through high school, like people and my mom and my parents were like, yeah, you're really sociable, like you're really personal. You need to be in an environment where you're talking to people.
Yeah.
And so in your academia, you're not that.
No.
Like you're like I said before, I was watching fish swim around. Like I did that for hours. Hours on a day, I was watching fish swim around, and like it was cool because I was finding stuff out that no one knows, and so that's that's novel in a way, but like not people focused at all. So then after that, it was like, okay, now it's time for work. Like now I need to like get out. I need to like deal with people. I need to find stuff like that. And then again, fortunately got hired on by GE in a sales position. Wasn't really thrilled about a sales position. I had all these sort of negative attitudes towards sales.
Yeah.
Very negative attitudes towards sales. When your parents are academics and your girlfriend at the time, she's now my wife, also an academic, medically trained, like there's this sort of like, well, you have to help people, going around hucking stuff at, and pitching things saying things a certain way so someone like buys. It's not really like a noble profession. So got into sales with that sort of background into stuff, and like, sort of through my own thought process of dealing with that. It's like, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with sales at all. Nothing wrong with sales.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm okay at it. I've got there's no negative concept. Like I don't feel bad about it. Started off like that. Don't get me wrong. There was a little bit of growth there. Again, like when so at that stage, so that's 4 years of undergrad plus 2 years of master's. So like 6 years of university exposure sort of gets you to that, like, well, maybe sales isn't that great. And then once you get in it, like, no, this is fine. Like this is like, there's nothing wrong here. There's no problem. And then similar to you, transition when my wife and I moved to Peterborough. And so at that stage, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do next? Like, do I want to be a person that has an academic background, biology background, water chemistry understanding, and then utilize that moving forward, possibly another sales position, consultant role? Or do I want to like take this time to like sort of adjust who I want to be?
Yeah.
And so that was the driver of like, okay, let's take a look at what an MBA looks like and is. And always the sales with GE got me interested in business.
Cool.
And so I was like, okay, let's explore this a little bit further. And like the greatest part about me doing like the most beneficial like information I've gotten from my MBA is that and you touched on this earlier about like I took in books and then I started doing stuff like the MBA taught me that you can change, you can adjust, like sure, your personality, your core, but you can change so much about yourself if you just really want to. Like if you want to be someone that does this thing that you never thought you could do, you can do that thing. Totally. Like you can do that. Like it's nothing stopping you. You might not be great at it, but like if you wanted to you could do it.
Yeah.
I was before that, science is very rigid and boxed in, so like you get stuck in this idea of like, no, I'm a researcher. Like I take a look at the data and then I formalize an opinion, and then like it's based on evidence and data, and like so you have this sort of track of decision making. And it's really important that you have that and sort of that way of thinking, and I still lean on that a lot. But you kind of get boxed in with that approach, and you're like, well, you know what, like I don't have to follow that approach. In this case, I don't have to. What do I feel like doing? Like who cares about the evidence? Like who cares about data? Like in this opportunity, I want to do blah. So let's just go do it. I want to think about this. I want to try this thing. And this is sort of leans back to that like trying stuff, right? Like sure, there's an experimental component to that, but a lot of it is just winging it and then seeing seeing what happens.
Yeah.
And like, there's no need for me to. I could study something beforehand, and it's not like I wing everything.
Right.
But for the most part, it's like, well, let's try something, see what happens. So yeah, that was a long. I completely forgot what your question was.
It was the like the origin story of your educational. Okay. Yeah. So you covered it.
And so I got this. I picked an MBA. So the MBA that I'm doing is in community economic development, and so.
Okay.
And that was a reflection from working in a corporate culture, and just not fitting into that corporate culture. Just really not. Like I was a widget for GE. Like they could plug me in and out, widget. And if you're a company, like that's awesome. Like if you are like that company where like your roles are defined in such a way that like, okay, here's the type of person that we're looking for. Do your role.
Yeah.
Oh, you leave. There's no ripple. Like nothing changed when I left. Nothing changed. Like, it was the same. It was this. If you're a business, that's excellent. When you're the widget, that's not great.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's not fulfilling.
Yeah.
For me, and so the MBA sort of allowed me to do something that I didn't know about community economic development before. Mm-hmm. So like. This aspect of like business for the betterment of a community vibe, right? Instead of being out on your own, trying to make as much money as you can, which you should do because you need to survive. Like we've got a sweet mic here that you have to pay for, right? Yeah. Like and you have to like data and stuff that you have to pay for, so you need money to do that.
Yeah.
But your vibe is different, right? And like, and this, you're doing a podcast about trying to get people into the flow state of things, right? Like that's way different than, obviously you need people coming through the door, but your attitude is that like, how do we build this community? How do I help out as much as I can? And so it's a different sort of, it just fits better with my insights
for sure
than not. Oh shit! It's 9:30.
We're crushing it.
Yeah, no. Let's do one more question, and then I should go because I do still have to get to work.
Oh man. Okay. One more question. That's a tough one though, because like everything you're saying just resonates so deeply with me.
Okay, cool.
So like
that's sweet.
The corporate structure of being, this big part of the food services at Queen's University. And
what did you do for Queen's University in the food services?
I was like a manager.
Okay.
So like,
cool.
I had done that advanced course in food science.
Yes, that's right.
And so like food safety was really important to my job, but like it was a retail manager. So like everything overseeing like the staff, but it was a unionized environment.
Okay.
Big corporate structure. Like, so, and I've never told this on the podcast before. And it's interesting because like, yeah, I guess we're going for it. Nobody's probably listening, but I don't really care at this point anyway. But like, it was, like the unionized environment was really challenging. I never experienced that before, but I don't know. It's just in me is the whole like team mentality.
Interesting.
It's about, it's about the team, right? There's no like, it's all about the team. And I mean, it's funny because I compete as an individual, but I came from like team backgrounds, basketball. I played ultimate frisbee in university.
Yeah.
And teamwork like is just something. So I know I was like, maybe that's a bit of ego speaking, but like I was a valuable part of the team. Like I would help people even if it was a unionized job and I wasn't really supposed to.
Yeah, you would just.
And like I said, like
which is a team environment, right?
I knew everybody's names, and like I talked to them all, even though I was like even quieter back then. Like I didn't want to, but I forced myself to talk to people because over time it became easier, kind of thing. But and there was a managers meeting. This was like the breaking point, the straw that broke the camel's back, and I was like. It was a struggle with staffing and everything across the board. People were calling sick and like because it's unionized, like you can't, you got to be very careful with who's getting hours and all that. Like there's a tier system. And I said like, like everybody's being stretched very thin, but we're doing okay. Like I'm not the type of person to like whine and complain that, oh, it's so hard. Like that's just not me. and like the district manager looked over to me and he said, "You got to watch your language. It's not us. It's not we. That it's us and them."
Yeah.
And when I heard that, that was like the turning point where like it wasn't much longer after that I was like, there were other life changes that kind of it was the right timing to leave Kingston and move, but that was the thing that changed in me, that like I realized like I can't stay in like this sort of like thing.
Yeah, it's a very combative stance.
Yeah,
it's really unfortunate because it doesn't have to be like that.
No, like I agree, and it's interesting, like the social enterprise thing. No, it's it's okay. It's
yeah, I mean, it turned out okay for you.
For sure, it turned out okay for me. And it's funny, you kind of said you were a widget that left GE. In my opinion, they lost a hugely valuable, and like I don't know if that's just ego speaking, but like I was kicking ass as far as I can tell. I had some growth opportunities as far as being a little more assertive with the team, but at least they respected and loved me. Like they like love is a word I would use, and that to me is just as important for getting keeping people happy when things are hard and like challenging and stuff. And
sorry, no,
that's not my phone. That's my mom's phone.
Ah, that's okay.
But so I guess
yeah, I mean it's unfortunate because a lot of that us versus them mentality is just really like in my personal opinion, it's just detrimental to a working environment, right? Like it and
like morale and
like it's just really and like it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't have to be like that.
No.
Like it doesn't, like between unionized employees and management, it doesn't have to be that. So I part of my gig at GE was I worked on a petrochemical company making plastics, making some form of plastics. And so it was a really interesting vibe there because management, again, not unionized, but some of their staff were, power engineers were. And like that organization did a good job of having a team attitude about these things. So it's not impossible to do, but once you're in that environment, it's so hard to change it, right? Like it's so hard for you to like corral all the other managers to be like, actually, we're all on the same team. We're all on the same team, but we're on the same team with our staff, and try to get them to believe that. Yeah, it's hard.
And like I don't think it was at like my level of like individual unit managers. I think it was a little more like closer to my view of it. It was when you got to like the district.
Oh, gotcha.
Sort of the district and like the general manager for the whole campus. Sort of idea. That's where it was kind of like, and it depended on who. There were a couple that were a little more on mine, but that's where like it kind of shifted.
Yeah,
that was like the tier that was different. Yeah, because like Sodexo's got like 260,000 worldwide employees, I believe.
Whoa. Was this the food? The
that's like the corporation that is contracted on campus. But so I guess a couple of we'll start wrapping it up. But like social enterprise.
Yeah.
Like what does that mean?
And, so
no, it's okay. Like what's that mean? And what can kind of, I don't know. So a question that we had when we first kind of got into this deep conversation, you were like here for like an hour just talking.
Exactly. Well, just like this.
yeah. But so the idea of like, and we've touched on it a bit, but making, is the business just to make money? Like what's the point? And I am strongly like there should be a deeper mission, a deeper a deeper vision to the business. And so how does that, what do you think about that? Like, can people just open a business for the sole sake of profits? And what's this like social enterprise thing? How's that tie into your philosophy around that?
Sure. So I'll first start with the definition that I use for social enterprise. It's pretty ubiquitous. It's pretty standard across like this field. So social enterprise as a study is fairly new, Like I think the first time that social entrepreneur, the word came out was like in the 1999, 2000. So it's not like it's brand, like in the academic world, that's new.
That's
right?
very new.
Yeah. So
like nutrition science is considered very new, and it's been around for like 30 or 40 years. That's still considered a very new science.
Because that's the way science works. Yeah. And so the definition for social enterprise is a business, an organization that creates social, environmental, environmental, and cultural good, and generates a revenue. So that's the basic definition. So you're creating good, whatever that is, whatever good is, socially, environmentally, and you're you're exchanging money somehow.
Yeah.
In order to either keep it afloat or because it's part of your mission or whatever.
Okay.
And so organizations that are set up for that. So think about if you were an organization and then you employed marginalized people and you charge the city to do that.
Yeah.
So you're providing a service by cleaning up the streets, by employing marginalized people, and then you're employing marginalized people. So that's the social good that you're doing. So that's sort of the bare bones definition of a social enterprise. Yeah. The thing that's so cool in my role at the Chamber, so lots of businesses that are Peterborough focused. So very few of them are like that would fall under this social enterprise vibe, unless you're dealing with a nonprofit, which there are a lot of.
Yeah.
Very few of them are like fit into that strictly that definition.
Yeah.
But they're all community focused. Like there's so many of these organizations and businesses out here that are like, I provide a service that I need to charge money for in order to be alive.
Yeah.
Keep charging that service for. But I'll sponsor a soccer team. I'll donate to this thing. I'll give my space for this fundraising event. I'll help out over here. Like tons of people just volunteer essentially. So even though like a really great example of sort of the Peterborough vibe is like when you take a look at the businesses that sponsor Music Fest.
Sure.
Most of those are not your typical social enterprise thing. You know, you've got financial planners, you've got lawyers' offices that sponsor that music festival the entire year because it's great to have that in Peterborough.
Gotcha.
It's great to have that here. And so for me, even though you might not fit that definition, like lots of small businesses are interested in being a part of the community and giving back in their own way.
Yeah.
Because they know that, you know, if you're selling insurance, like you get very little of your, like you're providing a much needed service that's super important, but it's not like you're like socially enterprisey necessarily. One of the things that I have to check myself on is that social enterprise is very new. It's very chic. It's very hip right now. People really are like, you have lots of businesses that are bending over backwards to prove that they are a social enterprise. And it's like, no, you don't have to be a social enterprise to be good. You don't have to be a social enterprise to give back. You do your service that is needed and you take money for that and you run a business and you employ people and you pay your bills and taxes. Excellent. Very important. And then when you can, you know, you lend your space out for an organization. You volunteer here. And like most of the businesses that are part of the Chamber, they just think like that. They just automatically think like that. So even though, like I said, very few of them would necessarily fit the social enterprise definition, they're all very community focused.
Yeah.
They're all like, and I mean, you're a great example of that. Like you're running this business. You need people coming through the door. You need people getting floats because you need to, this is your business.
Sure. Yeah.
You're paying for a chamber membership as well, right? Like these are things that you have to pay for.
Yeah.
But you're also like, how do I generate a community vibe in here? Like, yes, the podcast generates content for us, but at the same time, you're getting really cool people in here talking about stuff. You and Chelsea talk about some really cool stuff. Like you're sort of giving way in your own way. You're giving back in your own way. And so that's the part that's really cool about being in a small town. Peterborough is not small, by the way. People think it is. It's not. It's not small. It's a fairly substantial thing.
Yeah.
And people are just so community focused. It's great.
It is, yeah.
And that's a really great part of my role. Like when you're dealing with a big multinational corporation, I use Bell in my class a lot. They do a tremendous amount of work for mental health.
Yeah.
Bell Let's Talk Day.
Yep.
They've donated over $100 million since I think '09. So in 10 years, 10 million a year has gone to local initiatives in communities for mental health awareness.
Yeah.
Excellent. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Their share price in that 10 years has also dramatically gone up. And so it's like, yes, that they do good. Totally. So good. Mm-hmm. And the amount of good that they're doing, there's no small family-run business that could do that amount of money. Like none.
Right.
Like none. The impact that $100 million has had is way more than $100 million. And no one else can do that. You need like a big company. But what did they do it for? Did they do it to provide good PR to their brand? Did they do it to get, their logo across different things? Lots of people in the business world would say, yeah, those things are mutually exclusive. And maybe that fits in with Bell's mission. Mm-hmm. But because Bell is a corporation that is indebted to their shareholders, their stock price has to go up. Yeah. So you got to believe that, yes, they've donated an insane amount of money. And it's so important. And it's so good. And I'm so glad that they've done that. At the same time, like you can question their motives. A discussion that I have a lot in my class is, do those motives actually matter? And that's a really good discussion to have.
It's a really good question.
Do they matter? Yes or no? I don't know. Like, because we don't know. Obviously, we're not on the back end of Bell and what they do. Lots of my students this year, it's funny, you get different student ideas. This year, my students were like, it doesn't matter. The motivation does not matter. They've done it. 100 million in 9 years, 10 years. Yeah. It doesn't matter what their motivation is. It really doesn't. The good that they have done with raising mental health awareness and all of that is just so much better than the actual motive. Yeah, sure. I don't have an opinion on that, but because you see lots of small businesses give back. I guess my vibe to that is you see lots of small businesses and organizations give back what they can. Uh-huh. And just because they can't give back 100 million doesn't mean that the contribution isn't the same. And so with smaller organizations, their intent is there, even though the number isn't there. And so I kind of lean towards that's more important, the motivation behind it. But impact is impact. Yeah. And you need it. You need those sort of things. So what was the second part of that?
Well, the second part was like, is it, in your opinion, like, do you have an opinion? Like, can somebody make a business that's purely just to make the money?
Yes. Yep. And it happens a lot. And so,
I guess, do you think it's okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I do think it's completely fine if you set up, let's say you sell, widget C, and you make the best widget C that's ever made. Yeah. You don't really, people would say that you need the passion in order to get there, and sure, but there's a big argument there for like staying power, especially if you're a new business. Like if you don't have that passion to provide widget C, then you're not going to get to that final spot. But let's just say your motive, like you discovered that widget C makes you a crap load of money. Yeah. You plow into widget C and you just like, I'm making money with widget C. That is awesome. I'm happy with widget C. Mm-hmm. People like it. They buy it. That's it. You sell it. You live a comfortable life. You do your own thing. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of businesses that sort of set up that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. Where we are going to as a society is that we're demanding more from our businesses. We're demanding more. Yeah. Consumers, I should say, are demanding more. Yeah. So these organizations, instead of just providing a service that's well needed, they have to now do a second thing. They have to, or a third thing. They have to say, a percentage of what we're selling with widget C goes to landfill reduction or plastic use or employ marginalized people, or it fits in with a different mission, or we give a check every year. Like, consumers are demanding that. Sure. Okay. We're in that space now where consumers are demanding that. Yeah. And businesses have reluctantly sign up to that. So, and the reason why I say that is in August of this year, the Business Roundtable, so they are the CEOs of like the biggest American companies.
Yep.
I think there's 200 of them. And so the Business Roundtable is a nonprofit group for their lobbying purposes, not company to company, but CEO to CEO to try and advocate certain things. This August, they put out a joint statement saying that business should be stakeholder focused instead of shareholder focused. So when the Business Roundtable formed 40 years ago, it was shareholder value. Milton Friedman's economic theory about neoliberalism, the market decides, it has to be shareholders. If you are director of your company, everything that you have to do has to maximize value to your shareholders. That's it. That is the only person that you have to work for. 40 years later, the Business Roundtable put out a thing that says we are now shifting that, and it's stakeholders. So we want to employ the people that we work with, our suppliers. We want to treat everyone fairly. The environment we want to be good to. And so they've done a pivot, but it's taken them a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And whether or not they will actually do it,
sure,
is to be seen. But people in this field of the social enterprise movement, people that are part of the B Corp movement, they're like super excited about this announcement because finally you've gotten the attention of big businesses and leaders of big business saying you can't do business the way that you've done it in the past.
That is super exciting.
They're super pumped by it.
Yeah.
Like they're super pumped that they're saying this. I'm completely skeptical that they'll actually do it.
Sure.
But people, again, on the B Corp side are like, you know what? This is excellent. Our message that you have to treat everyone fairly, you have to be good to the environment, you have to be good to your employees is resonating.
Yeah, it seems to be getting through to some extent.
And consumers are demanding that. But, you know, as a sort of, you know, I would love to see every business have, you know, like I say, I don't have that problem in Peterborough convincing businesses to be community focused because I haven't bumped into a business that isn't. Like we've got 900 members. I can honestly, I don't know of anyone that's like, yeah, you know, we just don't care about this place. Like I don't know anyone that says that. But a business doesn't have to do that. Lots of people will say that if you do that, your returns are better, your financial returns are better, like your employees are happier. But like, I mean, it goes deeper than that. It goes like, you know, you should just be a good steward. You could just be a good steward to where you are and your relationships. And if that works out financially, that's great. If it doesn't, so that's my long-winded answer of social enterprise. And that's all my. It's based on, there is some research based on that sort of perspective that I can't.
No worries. Yeah, no,
articulate.
That's great. Yeah, like with people sort of, you know, coming to me now and asking that kind of question, I say that and there's obviously different ways on different levels. If you're doing the business just to make the money, it's fine. Know that.
Yep.
First and foremost, so that you're not like, you know, maybe you're not getting burnt out because you're not so passionate about it. Like, know that's like your primary purpose.
Exactly.
And then maybe your hobby does something for the community or
fulfills your inner need.
Yeah, your inner need or like that. You know, Tony Robbins talks about how like contribution is a really big, and like lots of people talk about contribution is kind of one of those pillars of meaning in life. So
gotcha.
Yeah, there's different ways.
Yeah, and I mean, a business, like I said, a business doesn't have to have that as part of their mission to be successful. Yeah. But you know, if you're after, like, I mean, I guess that's the point of the podcast. If you're after meaning, chasing profit does not equal meaning. You can survive. Yeah. Chasing profit does not mean meaning. Right. Like at all. Yeah. There's a really interesting. I've watched this a long time ago. A video. I wonder if we talked about it last time. The Queen of Versailles. It's It's a Netflix. It's a documentary. Yeah. And it's about the guy who came up with the timeshare model. Oh. So this guy is wealthy. Beyond measure wealthy. And the story is his wife He's got a wife that he loves, and he's got kids. And he's like a plain Jane type of guy. Like, he doesn't drive fancy cars. Like, he made so much money that his wife decided to build a replica of the Palace of Versailles in Florida. That's what the podcast, the video, sorry, not the podcast, the documentary is about. And they started building it in 2007 or 2008. And so then the credit crunch, the Great Recession happened. And so all the money dried out. And so then it followed that part. But it's so interesting because that guy who's built the timeshare model and is wealthy, like, I mean, he is very, very wealthy. He measures his contribution, his worth to how much dollars he's bringing in. Like, you can see that, but he's not greedy. If he was working for stones, he would want the bigger, like, he want more stones. If he was working for, like, whatever, like, he's just interested in, like, using the dollar money, the dollar value as an indication of how successful he is.
It's sort of like Warren Buffett.
Okay, explain. I don't know about Warren Buffett, sorry.
Well, I think, like, he's not greedy, but he's worth what, like $46 billion?
Yeah, he's worth a lot. Yeah.
But it's like his passion is making businesses grow.
Yep.
And like like stocks and just knowing how to.
I see where you're coming from.
How to but he does. There was a really great HBO. Yeah, it was on HBO. There's a really great Warren Buffett documentary. It's like an hour long, I think, or 90 minutes or 2 hours, whatever it was. I really enjoyed it because Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are just really interesting people. Charlie Munger is kind of like the even cooler one. He's he's the right hand man of Warren Buffett, and like he doesn't get the limelight that Warren Buffett does, but he's
there
just as critical to the whole Berkshire Hathaway picture.
Yeah.
And he's also like, his idol is Ben Franklin, and it's just he's just so wise. Like, he's got this really cool book called Poor Charlie's Almanac, which is kind of inspired from like the whole Ben Franklin wrote this thing called Poor Richard's Almanac.
Okay.
And the wisdom, like, it's just, but it's cool. Like, they're just they I think Warren Buffett still lives in like his house in Omaha.
The same house that he
grew up in and everything.
Yeah, and he's giving like none of his kids are getting any of the he's giving like $85 million away to charity. Like he's like, my kids don't need this money. Yeah, like, and that's a great example of whatever this Queen of Versailles guy.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's the same thing. Like he's measuring success in like the money.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care about the money.
Yeah.
Like he's not working. Like, it's just a measure of saying of how successful he is.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your Warren Buffett example fits that mold of like, this is how much value we brought to shareholders. I don't really care about the money. Like, I'm wealthy, but like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like I guess that's the long way of saying that if your business is focused on making profit, which every business should be, because you have to be in business.
Yeah.
Without profit, you're not in business.
Yeah.
So you need profit. But if you're solely motivated by that number, it's going to be a long road. You can be successful. It's a difficult road, and it's not meaning. There's no meaning in chasing that number, because there's always someone with more with a bigger pot.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't. There's always like it's very shallow. But like if you connect with selling widget C, I'm helping people. Widget C is great.
Yeah.
Great. And
we got to wrap up.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're running. Yeah, you're running out of space.
Worries.
Thank you so much. That was crazy.
Yeah. People can find you, the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
As a salesperson for the same Chamber of Commerce, you're not salesy at all.
Oh,
it doesn't even feel like
is that a good thing?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Like to me, it is. Like, okay. I'm not. Yeah, because I'm not a salesy person either. So to me, it's
good.
It's more about like building that relationship and getting people to join in and be part of the chamber. But yeah, the chamber's doing great things online too, so that's check them out on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. And thank you so much
for having me ramble on for an insane amount of time. I apologize.
it's like a, it's a slow evolution. I definitely noticed that the sound's much better when I've just got like the bi or the
Gotcha.
The with this mic. The stereo one picks up, it is a little bit harder to hear anybody and pick up background noise. So it's tricky though, because like if we've got 4 people stationed here, the only way to really do it is with the stereo mode.
Yeah.
Otherwise somebody's gonna sound quiet. And like I've in some of the previous, I've kind of got like, it's kind of ingrained in my head now, but I have the sort of mental checklist of what I kind of go through beforehand, because if I set this on like cardioid, you can hear me really well, but not you.
Yeah.
And then it sounds all funny because it's just like the sounds, just traveling over and coming through. And I've messed up a few times, but that's why I always like do the backup, and that mic is actually pretty good. That's
gotcha.
Like
it can pick up.
That's one of like the more popular like vlogging mics for cameras.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of like my backup if I need it,
okay.
And it's pretty cool. Like
and you don't have to match the audio to this, right? Because it's already picking up.
Yeah. So Adobe is pretty amazing. Like
once
you figure it out,
it can do that.
You can automatically synchronize audio.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so as long
crap.
As long as there's some sound coming through the camera,
okay.
It doesn't even need to be an external mic. It can just be the mic that's built into the camera.
Holy crap.
And you've got like a better quality microphone. You click on the video file, you click on the audio file, and you press synchronize, and it actually matches it up perfectly. It's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
Like, yeah.
Like, because I'm thinking like, oh man, it would take so much work to like get this synced up, like this synced up to that. No, holy crap.
No, mind you, this thing runs, so it takes like, to do that part of it takes me all of like 60 seconds.
Sweet.
Yeah. Like it's a digital camera, not a video camera, so that's why I actually set the timer for about 27 minutes, because it only runs for half an hour.
Gotcha.
And then there's like, so then I have to go reset it for the next like part, because usually we do almost like an hour pretty easily, pretty effortlessly on the podcast. And so there is a part where if the conversation's going really well and I don't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation, because that's kind of the central aspect of what we do here is really like you get into the flow state through these awesome conversations, and so sometimes like the video, like people will usually just play it in the background or whatever at home, right? So they're not like watching us for an hour straight. They're just listening in because YouTube's their preferred audio or their like player, and they might have YouTube Red or whatever that's like you play offline, or like you can close the app and just keep it playing in the background. So there's sometimes where the audio keeps rolling, like this will go continuously, but there's like a little spot like a minute or two that doesn't have the video clip because I didn't get back to the camera to turn it back on.
Gotcha.
That's why I try to do 27 minutes, so
and then it gives you a little bit of
a few minutes to like find the pause, the natural pause in the conversation, instead of knowing when it shuts off right at 30. But yeah, so it's kind of been a slow like adding of things. I think I tried to start out with like really cheap like lapel mics that were like $30.
How much does this thing cost?
This is like when they're on sale, they're like 120. If you go to Best Buy, it's like 170 or something. But if you get it online, they're like, depending on the color, there's different colors, and if you choose like the cool blue or black one,
isn't that wild that the color makes a difference?
So,
same thing with baby gear. You buy like the fancy black color, way more expensive than like the blue, and you're like,
So
anyway, sorry.
So no worries. That's this is a very popular podcast mic because the audio is really quite good. And I think over time we'll upgrade to like, so each person has their own mic, because then it's gonna just have a little bit less background noise.
Yes.
I also think eventually I'd like to do this. I've got like a space in the basement at home that would probably be nice, because we do get the odd like car horn or
you
whatever.
do hear that every once in a while. Yeah. It's not bad.
But... It's not that bad, but those are the things you improve upon. Like, we didn't start with an extra light. Like, the light helps to make the video version way brighter. Like, if you go back and look at some of the original ones, I even had a seated here in front of the the light coming in the back. So it's just stuff that like I've learned over time.
You play around with it. Yeah, we've got the same light stand, and they make such a difference.
Yeah,
they make a world of difference.
Yeah, for sure.
We do video in our boardroom.
Yeah,
and in there, tons of light comes in.
Yeah.
So you'll always start. You turn the camera on. You're like, yeah, this is fine. You won't ever turn on the light. You're not thinking about it. Then halfway through, a cloud comes in, or someone walks by, or like, and then the camera adjusts, and then it's dark, and you're like, yeah, okay, just set this up. It's not that difficult.
No, it's not.
And it works every time.
For sure. Yeah. So that's that was an addition.
That's so cool.
And then just the audio.
And you pay for Adobe.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Like I still can use my student cards for a lot of things.
Yep.
So I think it just ended, but the first year, of business, I was using like for the whole suite of products for Adobe was like $20 a month for me.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
It is. Yeah,
Holy
it's
shit.
great.
That's
I think
awesome.
And now it's gone up. It's like 45, which is still really reasonable. Like I can't go back now.
This idea of like syncing audio and it takes 60 seconds on its own is just crazy.
Yeah, no, and like now that I know how to use, Premiere Pro for video editing, After Effects for doing like, additional graphics and everything with the videos, I can't go back to not using it. It's amazing.
So who listens typically to this podcast?
So
do you know, or is that super hard to know?
It is very challenging. That like analytics with podcasts is a really challenging thing, because if it's YouTube, the YouTube side's a little bit easier because you can actually get the demographics from YouTube.
Cool.
You can see how long they watched through the episode. All that stuff is available, and that's why I like to do the YouTube version or the video version.
Just because
possible.
It's so much easier just to get data from.
Yeah,
useful data.
Well, because there's a couple different things. Like we upload the episodes. It's funny. I haven't even like introduced you yet, but we'll get to your side of it in a bit too.
I just want to know about this because I'm interested in the chamber probably
for
doing
sure.
this, but we need to work that out. Anyway, sorry.
No worries. So like there's different ways, and I think a popular one is called Anchor or Anchor.fm, which I think has a little more. I don't know why it has a little more advanced analytics as far as podcasts go. It's very popular now.
Okay.
You can also easily monetize it if that's something that you're into. We're not so much into that in the same way, but like you can actually, they have like a list of sponsors that they could plug into your podcast based on like your category or whatever. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Anchor's like very popular for that, but I just like we have a Squarespace website.
Yep.
For Flow Spa, and it's just so easy to use, but also so powerful as far as the like I don't think there's a limit. Like with Anchor, I think it's like 100 or 200 episodes, and then the old ones start to drop off. Like there's a limit, but I don't think with Squarespace there's any limit to how many you can have up.
Cool.
I might be wrong with that, but they also have. So the reason I switched to doing like a third party analytics for the podcast is with the Squarespace one. I think it's an analytics of the RSS feed, so the numbers look crazy compared to like my number of blog views per day or week or month.
Got it.
Like we have spikes of like 1,000 or more people going through the podcast.
Whoa.
Or 1,000 more hits, but I think that's because anytime that say like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Play Podcasts or whatever it's called, or an Android one like Podcast Addict, Overcast, all those things, whenever they pull into your feed to like actually update it, I think that counts as like
a tick.
Either one tick or maybe even more than one, and so it's a very misleading number. So I added in like there's with Squarespace again, you can actually just put in where like the podcast analytics, and it's like a URL redirect basically that sends it to I just use it's called like I think Blueberry. And it's kind of a little more accurate. So now we kind of know, but it doesn't really show. It shows like location. It shows whether it's mobile or desktop and stuff, but it's still The issue is that people download podcasts to their device.
Yes.
They don't and
maybe they listen to it or not is a different.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't show how long they've listened to it because that's not something that's built into most podcast players.
Yep.
Podcasts like apps. Whereas I think that's one of the benefits of using like the Anchor system is I think that it shows it,
some of that.
But everybody would have to be using Anchor as well, I believe.
Cool.
And Apple's kind of working on their analytics side of it, but it's still in beta, and I haven't been able to get it to work.
Gotcha.
Like, it doesn't show me any data, so I don't know what's the deal with that.
So what's average for like whatever download number through this Blueberry service?
So like through different podcast apps, it seems like it's around like 10 to 15.
That's pretty good.
But then we get like views of like sometimes like 50 to 70 to 80 on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
So like we may be getting we've got I still don't know how to interpret all the numbers, but it looks like our number of unique downloaders, which I think means subscribers, is like 170-ish.
Whoa. Awesome. Congrats.
So it's going up.
And it's across the world. It's not or not really. Does it seem like
it's definitely in Canada for the most part.
Cool.
But there are some like international
weird.
There are some international ones too. So I don't know. It could be, I don't know. Well, I kind of push it out. Like I've got more of like from competing and training in strongman, like that audience, which I sometimes share some of our podcast episodes if they're relevant to.
Yep.
Is a little more like global based.
Cool.
So it could be some overlap there. It could also just be like the name FlowCast is. There's like I think there's a podcast in like Sweden or something called FlowCast.
Okay.
And it's not in English, so I figured it would be okay for me to use that name anyway. And I don't know if any of it's from overlap from that, but not really sure. The whole like podcast analytics thing's not something we obsess too much about because
you're just trying to get content. You're trying to
the content and like the local content relevant to the people that are, whether they're coming into flow spa or just kind of this deeper mission of flow states is all good to us. So yeah, we're not like obsessed about trying to be, like Joe Rogan and getting like MeUndies and Quip and the Cash App and all that on our sponsored. At least at this point,
it's
maybe
hard
cool,
to get there, man.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
It's hard to get there,
especially because it is really hard. Like I'm good at analytics. It's really hard to validate a podcast, so I have no clue. I think I think it probably depends on. Probably a lot of it would be dependent on if you're one of those like top ones on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they would get.
It's probably more subjective than objective on who gets the.
Yeah, but I have a feeling that they would just choose one marketplace like Apple Podcasts, and they're like, "Yep, this gets." 1 million downloads an episode. Yeah. Just through that one.
Probably.
And it's like, that's a number.
Because some Android, the interesting thing is some Android podcast players, you can actually see how many people are subscribed to a podcast.
Cool.
Which is like something you're not supposed to be able to know.
Oh.
Like from the user perspective, you're not really supposed to be able to know how many people
subscribe
to it. I don't know. That's kind of like the funny thing about podcasts, where YouTube you can see how many subscribers somebody has. But with podcasts you can't. But there are some, but they're only. I think it's either only through that specific app. So like Podcast Addict is an example of one that I've used on Android before, and you can see how many people are subscribed. But I think it's either only through Android or it's only through Podcast Addict. So it's not like you see all the iTunes subscribers or the Apple Podcast.
Very cool.
So yeah.
Very cool.
But and it doesn't have to be like I kind of mentioned this to you before.
Yeah, in the email.
It doesn't have to be a long form thing. Like we like to do that because we like to actually get the conversation into like a flow state of just kind of getting deeper onto subjects and seeing where it leads us. But it can also be something really short, like Seth Godin does that. There's people that do just like these sort of riffs or rants, and they're very popular.
Yep.
And if that's that's something that can definitely be done too.
Yeah, it comes up every so many months.
Yeah.
Tiffany is like, she loves being in front of a mic. And she's really good at it.
Yeah.
Like, she's really excellent at
Yeah.
it. So she's always like, yeah, let's do a podcast. And we have a ton of crazy we have just so many stories.
Of course. Yeah.
Flowing in and out of the office. So it's like, yeah, we could totally talk about this or that. And so, but every time it's like, okay, what is it actually going to be about?
Right.
How does it help our mission? And then it's like, okay, now we're back in the muck here. Like, besides, how can we make this better? Or how can we, because we still have to work for our members. So like, how is this beneficial? How is this actually going to add to the community, our business community? And we just get stuck.
That makes sense. Like, another good example is so one of the most helpful for me personally in opening up Flow Spa was the Daily Solutions podcast by these guys from Float On down in Portland, Oregon. They've got they're very helpful to the industry at whole for float tanks, and they did 365 days straight of 10 to 15 minute episodes like Q&A on float tanks.
Cool.
Whether it's which type of disinfectant to use, how to like drain the tanks, like every single question you could think of. And, people would send in their questions. The next day they'd answer a new question because they had 5 years of experience or maybe it was 8. I think they've actually been around for 8 years. So it's been they've been around with their float center for a long time. Cool. And they did. And even if you're not in, like, it's worth checking out because they do like something that you guys kind of have fun with at the chamber. Their intros were like, they would kind of just like, bang pots and pans and make like their own song every day, or like a different intro. One would be, like kind of how you guys like when you did the sort of fake news reporter for Black Friday. Yeah. Like, they would sometimes do that where it's like, they're reading off like a teleprompter and it's like, it says that this is the Daily Solutions podcast, but I don't think that's correct. They would just, and it was so much fun to listen to, like, just so what their introduction was going to be for the day, and that was like their style, and it's cool to even just check out a few of them. But yeah, that was it was very helpful for me, and that's another example of something that sometimes was 5 minutes long a day. I find that doing a daily one is kind of aggressive. If they have a bit of a team, they've got like a tech guy, and they got a little bit more. You after
you record this, you gotta clean it up a little bit. You gotta make sure it all works. You have to save it.
Yep.
All that stuff.
Yep. Put it all together.
That takes time. I love your intro. It's funny that you talk about intro. I love your intro to.
Oh, thank you.
To the FlowCast. Like, it's like, here we go. Like, this sort of upbeat techno sort of thing, but it's not like crazy fist pumpy sort of stuff. It's like, I got it.
It started with a different song a while ago that a friend of mine actually made, which we actually use in the float tanks. Okay. As sort of the relaxation music and sort of the wake up music, and it worked pretty well, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for to like embody the FlowCast. Yeah. And then I found this song, and kind of like something that ties into it a little bit too is like, there's the Adobe subscription. You can definitely find like free music or whatever, royalty free music, but I subscribe to like a music subscription service that you can then use for your videos or podcasts, because I do make a couple videos a month as well, and it's nice to have music in the background instead of just being like silent. And since I've kind of like been bit by the photography and videography bug, it works out in that way too. So that's another thing that, like, it's not super expensive, but it's like another part of the package.
Yeah,
is
the
like
experience,
the music, and because I want to keep that song, like I stay subscribed to that platform as well.
Yeah, now you're stuck.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's a good stuck.
Yeah, no, it's a good stuck as long as I maintain the enjoyment of it, then I might as well. I think like. I don't know. As far as I understand, if you're subscribed to something like that, you can't upload any new videos with the music, but anything that's from the past where you've paid before, like you're not gonna get in trouble for that. I see. So it's not like you're stuck indefinitely, but you're stuck if you want to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
for, I guess that's sort of the idea of building a business anyway, is
Yep.
like ideally things are going up. So yeah, it's still always moving up and up.
Yep.